Hello everyone, today I'm going to show you some of the new stuff for the upcoming custom object creators. I really hope everyone is enjoying the custom equipment creators, and I'm sure that custom object creators will add another layer of customization to the game. Just a disclaimer, everything you see in this video is work in progress and subject to change. Alright, let's jump into it. In the main menu there are two new buttons. One for custom environment objects like trees, rocks and bushes, and another button for actual custom objects of various types. Let's start with custom environment objects, which are very easy to set up. As you can see, there are now some short UI descriptions for the different item types. The basics are still the same like for all custom item creators. You can import a model and adjust it, only the settings are different. For the environment objects, I'm using assets from my latest small game Forest Fire, which I created for a game jam. The link is in the description below if you want to check it out. One small limitation of environment objects is that transparency is not supported. That's to ensure they are just as lightweight in terms of performance as their vanilla counterpart. Just like for all the other objects, there are some basic settings required like a name, description and error. What's new about the object settings is that they feature information about certain topics directly in the settings UI. For trees, it will say the rotation will be randomized to create variety, the placement rotation can be adjusted, and the placement depends on the object origin, and there's a tip on how to adjust the placement, but I'll explain that later. While most of the vanilla trees always face upwards and ignore the surface angle, some of the alien trees, for instance, are aligned to the ground, which can be selected here. To select which parts of the tree cause collisions and to prevent the AI from walking through it, you can select for each material if it is part of the wood or leaves. This not only makes it very easy to set up these information, but also allows me to add stuff like wind animations to trees, which is planned for the future. Next up are bushes, which don't actually have any settings since they are purely decorative objects in the game. There are just some information about how object placement will work in the editor. So while we are here, let me explain that really quick. After importing a model, the object's origin is always in the center of the scene, and it's recommended to keep it that way, just so that you can imagine the Y-grid overlay right here in the scene as the terrain plane, or really any surface you place the object on. Then all that's left to do is to adjust the position of the object with the model tools on the left to make sure it's mostly above the origin, and maybe some parts should be slightly below the grid overlay so that the object isn't flying after placing it. The last environment object type are rocks. Rocks are always aligned to the surface and the same origin placement rules apply to them. Since rocks have collisions, there's this already known collider option available in the settings, which allows you to use accurate mesh colliders this time. Other than collisions, you can adjust if the rock blocks AI movement, which most of the vanilla rocks do, and whether vehicles can drive over it or not. Here you can see me placing the custom bush and rock objects, since I made sure that the origin is at the center and slightly below the object. They are placed just like the vanilla objects. And the horizontal rotation is randomized for each placement, and they are always aligned to the angle of the surface. Alright, let's move on to regular objects. Here we have object, consumable, particle effect and modular object as categories. As the name suggests, particle effects will be invisible objects which emit custom particle effects, which can be controlled with scripting, and modular objects can be used to create objects which can be placed in the slots of the modular building system. For the object category, I'm not sure if it will be split into different categories, but basically you will be able to create a variety of objects that units can walk on, ammunition or heal crates, light components, particle effects and many more options. The only two categories which are fully functional at this point are custom consumables and particle effects. Consumables are objects which the player can interact with and which will then be removed like the vanilla food items. There are different types of consumables and some really cool stuff you can do with them, so stay tuned for what I'll show you next. Alright, all consumables have the basic information again, and the available settings depend on the consumable type. And again, there are short descriptions for the type of consumable. For food it says, the player can eat this object, which reduces hunger and thirst in zombie survival and restores some health depending on the object settings. Then we can set calories, water, and the vanilla items also add some health points to the player. For accurate interactions in first person, collision data has to be set. I have also added vanilla sounds to consumables in this version, but you can select a custom sound which will be played when consuming this object. And before you interact with an object, it usually shows something like press F to eat, but you can also select a custom message right here. Lastly, we have some information about the placement again, which depends on the object origin like for all other objects. For drink items, I won't go too much into the details, they share the same settings like food items, the only difference is the default sound and UI message. And heal items are also very similar. The player can use this object to restore some health or stop other negative health effects. You can set the amount of health points to heal, as well as poison and fire reduction. Next up we have ammunition items. Bullets will be added to the player's inventory when this item is picked up. We can select the caliber and amount of bullets that will be added to the inventory. Alright, let me just jump into the game to show you this stuff in action. As you can see, the consumables can be placed on any placement surface, and exactly where my cursor hits the surface, the origin of the object will be placed. And while interacting, it shows the custom UI text and plays the sound I selected. Okay, time to show you consumables without a predefined type. I have this unit plushie object, and when I select none as a consumable type, the game will only provide functionality to interact and remove the item. As the description states, nothing will happen when you pick up this object, but visual scripting can be used to create custom behavior. Now, while that basically means you can create whatever you want, one thing I always had in mind are quest items. In the past, it was rather difficult to create maps where the player had to collect stuff, but with this feature, all you have to do is to create a small object, select the collider, and use the onConsume event node to implement custom behavior. Let me just show you a simple example map with custom quest items. Alright, this guy will trigger my quest. Hey soldier, this, bad word, is the enemy base stole my limited edition Acid War for 3 plushies. I want them back. I'm on it. Perfect, you'll get some ice cream when you return my plushies. Okay. I've added 2 task markers using visual scripting, which are really useful for this type of missions. The first plushie is under this guy. I hate it when ragdolls are in the way. Finally, he's out of the way, and as you can see, there is only the interaction notification, and when I interact, the object will be despawned and the onConsume event is triggered, which I use to update the task marker on the HUD. Alright, time to get the second one. Here it is. You have to use variables to store which items you picked up, because the game doesn't have any kind of inventory for these types of items. Now I'm going to move back to the trader. Custom consumables can be spawned, teleported and deleted. There are no real restrictions like for some other objects, and that also means I can spawn them again when I give them back to the quest giver. And I'm sure you will use custom consumables in a lot of creative ways. This was just one simple example. The last thing to show are particle objects. The settings are really simple. There is this option to adjust a particle system with some child particle systems similar to the custom grenade effects. And then all you have to select is how this effect is going to be placed, either on the terrain or any other object with a placement surface, or the effect can be placed on any wall or surface based on a placement direction. For instance, with this effect I can choose the positive y-axis for the placement direction, and then in the editor it will be aligned on this axis based on the orientation of the surface I'm attaching it to. And of course, custom effects can be controlled with scripting, so you can toggle them on and off. And then in this case I use triggers for hit detection. So yeah, that's all I wanted to show in this video. I really hope you like the stuff, and I'll be back soon with more information about the other custom object types. Thanks for watching.